Okay, so maybe we should start little by little, talking about finance and funding. I remember that yesterday, I think, Chanti, you raised the point regarding the funding and finance of those different actions. So I think this is a key, of course, this is a key element if we want to implement climate change adaptation plan, or if we want to implement any management activities, let's say. So my name is Romain Renoux. I'm the executive director of the MedFUND, and I will be moderating this session this morning. And I'm pleased also to welcome on this very high level panel, Mr. Lorenzo Merotto from the Portofino MPA. He's in charge of science, besides so many other things. We were talking about that. When you manage an MPA, you do quite everything. We have Carole Martinez, also part of the MedPan team, who will be sharing with us the recommendation of this session. Aniol Esteban will be also joining us in a few minutes. He's a marine biologist, environmental economist, and the director of the Marilles Foundation. But he's having now an interview with the radio. So he's a very famous guy. So we will maybe start with Lorenzo, and he will join afterwards. And then we'll have Timothée Cook from BLueSeeds online. Hi, Timothée. We don't see you, but I hope that you are
Hello.
online.
I see you and I can hear you.
So maybe to start with, I think that we have a video. I remember that. This is the title of the session. So financing, investing in healthy marine ecosystems for a sustainable and resilient future. Well, this is a very poetic way of saying that we need funds, right, to implement our management activities. So maybe we should start with the video, I guess. Yes, thanks. Sound? There is no sound? Yes, thanks.
Our marine environment provides us with many goods and services. Natural capital accounting is a methodology that helps us visualize all this and provides us with information to take action to protect and improve our environment. The mix of marine habitats and species is our natural capital. The healthier it is, the more benefits and services we get. In 2020, we started a natural capital accounting study of the marine reserve of Llevant Cala Rajada in eastern Mallorca, Spain, covering only 11,286 hectares. This marine protected area generates goods and services worth 4.8 million every year, €10 of benefits for every euro invested. Investing in marine protected areas pays off.
Nice video to start this session. So just a couple of slides I want to share with you because before I pass the floor to Lorenzo, just saying that, and we talked about that this morning, and I think yesterday also, is that marine protected areas are a triple win. They preserve biodiversity and marine ecosystems, so we saw that, but that also contributes to the climate change mitigation, but also the adaptation of the coastline. We also talked about that this morning, but they are also provide what we are calling blue economy activity. They do support the implementation of blue economy activities. So how we could capture that? So this part of the talk of this morning. The MedFUND, just in a nutshell, the MedFUND is an environmental fund dedicated to support day-to-day management activities of marine protected areas across the Mediterranean Sea. At the MedFUND, we believed that a skilled management team and sustainable management team plus sustainable funding deliver efficient and sustainable MPAs. So looks like basic, like like that, but it's actually true. There is a lot of MPA across the Mediterranean Sea. They don't have sustainable management team because there is a big turnover, or they don't have sustainable funding. So how we can promote, let's say, MPAs to decision makers, political leaders, and this is part of the talk of this morning. How can we use the natural capital to also convince leaders that investing in MPAs pays off? So I give the floor to start to Aniol, Esteban. So you'll have like almost 10 minutes each, and we keep the question for at the last of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Romain. I'm going to go to the edge of the stage, and I'm going to set my watch so that I don't take too much time. So thank you very much, everyone, and it's great to have the opportunity to tell you about this pilot action that Marilles Foundation led. And because I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to say it later, I would like to say now that apart from all the effort that MedFUND coordination team had put in organizing this, there has been one engine behind, one driving force making this possible, which is this man sitting down now, which is Tony Font, and I think he deserves a big clap. He is a great host, and I'm sure that if you want to come back to Mallorca, partly will be thanks to him, and it's a great contact to have. He's multiple contacts all over the world. So thanks very much, Tony, because I have quite abandoned him to the wolves, and he's done brilliantly. Okay, now that I have shaken off my guilt, I will tell you about this, this project. So the main reason behind this action is that if we are not able to explain and describe the benefit that marine protected areas have, the benefits that marine protected areas bring to our society and our economy, then we will be very, very, very unable to get more funding and secure the level of funding needed to make them work as they should. So, quick photo of the Balearics region is one of the best preserved regions in the Med. More than 400 fish species, half of the seagrass meadows, Posidonia, that Spain has are in Balearic waters, resident population of large megafauna. However, it's a region under pressure. The level of pressure on these islands is tremendous. Massive amounts of visitors, growing recreational fishing, growing nautical pressure, still problems with wastewater treatment, different challenges that need to be solved. The professional fishing fleet has been massively on decline over the past years, but there are some good bases for change. One is that we sense a change from society, from the private sector and from the public sector, which is favorable for marine conservation. And we have a network of marine protected areas covering about 20% of the sea under some form of legal protection. However, only 0.16 or 0.2% no-take zone. So if we want to deliver the 10% goal by 2030, we need to increase no-take zone area times 50 in less than 8 years. MPAs, being very simplistic, are created for two reasons, as you know. Either fisheries performance, such as the fisheries marine reserves, or biodiversity conservation. And you might have different forms there, like natural parks, national parks, Natura 2000 sites. Irrespectively of what they are created for, these are mutually reinforcing objectives. So they help to deliver each other. But they deliver much more than the objectives for what they've been created. They deliver economic activity, they deliver educational opportunities, they deliver leisure, well-being, opportunities for sports, for health. However, for this to work, we need to invest. We need to invest in management, coordination, enforcement, monitoring, participation, and so on. And applying natural capital accounting to a marine protected area, thinking of a marine protected area in terms of a capital, of a machine that generates benefits to us, can be a way of making visible that relationship between the economy and the marine environment. So if we think about our marine environment or a marine protected area as our capital, as the money that we have in the bank, for example, this capital generates goods and services, fish, leisure, climate regulation, and so on. If we have this capital in good health, we deliver lots of benefits. And if we have it in bad health, we deliver fewer benefits. Pretty simple to understand, and most of you already know this. However, the challenge is that most of these benefits are invisible. And unless we measure them, we can't visualize them, and we can't tell the story. So the natural capital accounting methodology helps us to achieve this. And before I go into detail, I would like to say that the work that I'm going to present now, which is the pilot action that we did in Cala Ratjada, Llevant, was done in collaboration with two consultancies. One is EcoAXA. David is there. Please, David, stand up so that people can see you. So David did all his company did all the technical, economic valuation analysis. And if you have any specific questions, please go and find him. And then we worked in partnership with CBVA, which is a local consultancy, which did all the data gathering. This is an example of monetization and economic valuation of one asset, which are the Posidonia meadows in the Balearics. And this shows that the stock value of all the Posidonia for the next, looking at 60 years ahead, is in the region of 600 million. So you have a few examples of economic value per hectare in terms of water quality improvement, coastal protection, and ecological productivity. It's an underestimate because it doesn't include many other services that we get from Posidonia, like the pleasure of seeing it, for example, or the value of existing per se. Because I don't need any economic argument, and probably neither do you, to justify the conservation of something, but a significant share of society does. So that's why we are doing this. How does natural capital accounting works? Very simple, 4 steps. Asset register, look at the region, and a marine protected area in our case, and identify all the habitats and species we have and what's their state of conservation. Second, identify what are the benefits and goods that are generated by that mix of habitats. Thirdly, try to put an economic valuation, try to describe those services and goods in economic terms. And lastly, try to estimate how much does it cost to manage that particular place. These are simple questions with very difficult answers, and they require a methodology to be done. And in the same way that it was difficult to answer the question of how much does it cost to have a climate vulnerability assessment, we need to be better at having those price tags for what we need. So there were very few precedents of applying a natural capital accounting to a marine protected area. And a part of this project has helped us to develop guidelines to replicate it to other MPAs. We produced a methodological guide. We did this pilot study in Cala Ratjada, Llevant, which is in the eastern side of Mallorca. It cost about 60,000 euros, and it took us about 10 months. This is the location of the site on the eastern part of Mallorca. It's an area of 11,000 hectares. It was established in 2007 at the request of fishermen. It's a fisheries marine reserve, so a small-scale artisanal fishermen are allowed to fish. Spur fishing is not allowed. There are regulations. There was a strong opposition to the declaration of the fisheries reserve. There were adverts on the newspaper in 2007 saying this is going to be the death of this region if we declare a marine protected area. And people who were opposing that marine protected area now are benefiting from it through their tourism-related activities. It's a mix of habitats, about 10, 15, 20 small-scale fishermen fish there, and there is some economic activity linked to the area, like diving centers, boat trips, and other leisure activities. So the simplified version of the analysis is that the gross value of the services and the goods attributed to this area is in the region of 5 million a year. And the cost of managing this area is about $500,000 a year. So for every euro we invest, we get 10 euro of return. And we make it clear that the potential could be even higher, because this is not the best managed MPA in the world. There are lots of shortcomings and more funding is needed. But nonetheless, this is a very, very positive return, and similar stories could be told across the Med if we make similar analysis. In more detail, here there are some numbers for the different goods and services measured. So we measure from the carbon capture to the recreational activity that can be linked to the reserve. And put it very simply, 2/3 of the value is captured by the tourism and recreational sector. A very small amount of the value is captured by the fishermen, but it is enough for them to be happy in a way and content with the reserve. But I think that value could be increased. And the rest of the values are different ecosystem services that benefit the population. This is the front page of the methodological guide, which I think we translated into English. Tony, is that right? The methodological guide, yes. So it's available. It's available on the site, and this is yes. So we released these results last month of July with great media impact. We got it nearly a full page in El País, which is a leading newspaper. We got a very good story in El Mundo, which is also a big newspaper on different political sites, so covering broad spectrum of society. And then when we published it, there was interest from The Guardian, so it's published from The Guardian. And once it was published in The Guardian, Leonardo DiCaprio tweeted about it. So that meant that this story has been told in the Balearics 3 times. First was when we published it. Second was when it was in The Guardian, because the newspaper says the international press talks about our marine protected areas. And then when Leonardo DiCaprio tweeted about it, Leonardo DiCaprio talks about our marine protected areas. So a big, big media impact for this piece of work. And if you want to learn more, well, visit the webpage of the project, contact myself or Tony Font. If you want to follow the work we do, which has lots of economics in it, follow us on social media. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aniol. That was very clear. And I'm sure that Leonardo DiCaprio goes also to Portofino from sometimes. So there is a challenge for you now, guys. You have to get a tweet from Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Next time for the Portofino MPA. So the floor is to Lorenzo Merotto, so in charge of the science in the MPA.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks to give me the opportunity to speak about this. And yeah, we talk. I do a little difference with the previous presentation, because we want to underline how the natural capital can be an instrument to involve the policymaker. So first of all, what is the natural capital analysis? I am in a MPA staff, so I'm not a researcher, not a proper researcher. And anyway, this kind of study for me is very, very hard to do. So for most of the people, understand what is the capital natural capital is very difficult. And so we have an ecosystem that provides us the natural capital. So for example, our environment, seagrass, coralligenous, etc. Some ecosystem function, for example, also the fish. Then ecosystem services that can be different. The services for the fishers, For example, the Posidonia Meadow give us a lot of services, protect the coast for erosion, give fish, carbon sequestration, and go on. And then all the socio-economic system with benefit and monetary value. The socio-economic system can do some impact on the ecosystem. So the socio-economic system can erode itself, eroding the ecosystem. I don't know if it's clear, but the situation is more or less this. So now I didn't do a presentation on Portofino MPA because yesterday Valentina did this, and more or less my presentation is a sequel of the one from Valentina. So in collaboration with University of Genoa, because as I said before, I cannot do this kind of analysis. We provide data, for example, the one that yesterday Valentina talked about. They elaborate with us, and at the end we have results. For example, these are the results of our natural capital in the MPA, in the different habitats, and it's estimated about 18 million of euro, mainly for on Posidonia, Coralligenus, and Photophorus algae. Then, so this is what the natural capital, what we have in our MPA. Then there are the economic activity. In this case, yesterday we talked about the fisheries. So we have done a lot of monitoring. We give the data from monitoring to University of Genoa and do this elaboration in the framework of MPA networks. What we can see that the artisanal fisheries harvest, so subtract from our MPA 380,000 euro of natural capital. So, and in these graphs, it's possible to see that the grade of natural capital eroded can be sustainable or not. For example, we see that you see some sectors that are in red. In the sector, there is a lot of impacts, a lot of harvests from fisheries. So maybe we have to manage this. In other sector, the situation is better. What I want that underline after that in Samaria, let's say here near Portofino Cape, the situation appears good, but this is for a lack of data that I show after. So the key facts, the results can help us to reduce impacts, to make some consideration about the impacts of the activity on the specific habitat. And so it's necessary to use the natural capital value as communication tool with decision makers and also to the stakeholder, because often the policymaker and the stakeholder doesn't understand the importance of an MPA from a monetary and economic point of view. And as I said before, the MPA management can decide and have to decide to use this data to take some specific measure to make that this not sustainable use of resources can impact sometime definitely in the MPA. And it's important because now I have spoken about the fishermen, but this kind of analysis can be done also on, for example, diving activity, boating activity. So it can be extended to many other activities. So it's necessary to work with a skilled organization, research organization. The MPA staff often doesn't have knowledge and time to do this kind of analysis. And the MPA staff who carry the monitoring and participate with the researcher to the analysis have to know their area very well in order to understand all the factors that can alter the results. And it's very important, the communication, because it's a very hard topic, this one. And often when you talk with a researcher about this topic, you didn't understand anything because they are too technical. And at the end of 1 hour of talk, you know exactly the same that before the talk. So it's necessary to simplify all the message of this study. Difficulties. I repeat, the team of researchers have to be specialized because sometimes someone improvise in this kind of activities. But in Italy, in Europe, there are teams that in their work do only this kind of research. So they are very skilled. And this kind of study have to be continuously updated because the lack of data can alter in some way the results. For example, the green area that I show before is a very impacted area. We know that is very impacted, but we have problem to gather data from it. So in the future, we want, for example, try again with involve a couple of fishermen that are not very collaborative in that area to take more data and try to understand what is the situation in that area. And I work mainly on MPA Engage and then on MPA networks. And I did a lot of effort on vulnerability assessment. So I think that the natural capital accounting and the vulnerability assessment have to work together because with the natural capital, you know your monetary value of your MPA, and with the vulnerability assessment, you can somehow forecast what can happen not only for the impact of the human activity, but for the climate change. So I think that these two tools are fitting very well each other. So, and they are a good tool to speak with policymaker and in general with stakeholder. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lorenzo. And do not forget the Leonardo DiCaprio challenge. Yeah. Next year, we need a tweet.
We have Chiara Ferragni. But
Okay.
it's not the same. It's not the same.
It's all the same. So she will need two tweets. Follow. So thank you very much also for linking the two projects. I think that was very interesting, MPA Networks and MPA Engage, having these two complementary tools to share with decision makers. I think this is a very interesting point that you have highlighted. Thanks again. So now we have someone online, I guess, that will make a presentation from Bordeaux, maybe. So Timothée Cook from BLueSeeds, the floor is yours.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me?
Not really.
Okay, I'll try again. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Does that sound good? Okay, so apparently you guys are supposed to be showing the slides and I will tell you next slide or something like that.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. So, yes, thanks. So I'm speaking from Bordeaux here, and so it's very hot, as I'm sure it is also where you are. So, yes, I was asked to provide some training insights, and at BLueSeeds we do quite a lot of training for marine protected areas, and it's tempting to try, when you're addressing effectiveness, to give a sort of general training, and you think, okay, this time we've nailed it, and they're going to be good, they're going to be effective. Actually, the truth is that you need to think about using building blocks, and one of the building blocks that needs to be used very often is the building block to train on business planning. So I'm going to get there. So I'm not going to go into detail. Romain has touched on this. Sufficient financial resources are a precondition to ensuring that MPAs are well managed and play their role. The founder of BLueSeeds led a study in 2015 in collaboration with MedFUND and other collaborators on the financing gap of Mediterranean MPAs. And the study showed that only 8% of the financing needs for optimal management within the 10% coverage framework, ISHI 2020 targets, were covered by available resources. So this meant a financing gap to reach that 10% coverage of 700 million euros per year. And this was in 2015. So accounting for inflation and a new framework of 30%, a simple linear extrapolation would put that financing gap around 2.5 billion euros per year at the regional scale. And so it's clear there is a necessity to provide MPAs with an educational path to enable them to gradually build their financing skills. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the first skills required by MP managers to develop a financial strategy is business planning. And so just quickly, although this may seem obvious to some of you, it was not to me at first because I'm a biologist by training. What is a business plan? It's a plan of all of the costs and revenues of your MPA that are related to its activities over a period of, let's say, 5 to 10 years. And the first thing you need to do before you start building a business plan is to make a list of your activities and their costs. And in order to do this, you need a management plan with a detailed action plan. And so what is the purpose of all this? Well, without a business plan, you have no idea of how much money you need to fund your conservation activities with. And therefore, you have no idea of what your financing gap is, and you cannot, therefore, develop a financial strategy. So it's pretty basic, but trust me, from our experience, not a lot of managers or MPAs have the skills, time, or interest to develop these plans. And currently, only around 28% of MPAs in the Med have a business plan. So part of the networks, MPA Networks Interreg project, with the support of the Mapa Foundation, the Fonds Français pour l'Environnement Mondial, and the Office Français de la Biodiversité, MedFUND launched a training program on business planning last year, designed and delivered by us BLueSeeds with the support of Réunion National Park. And most of the content of the training and its general structure was inspired by this guide that we've published last year, which is called Financing Mechanisms for Mediterranean Protected Areas. Next slide, please. So how did we organize this training? As we all know, unfortunately, Mr. COVID got in the middle of a lot of things last year. And so although this was initially scheduled as a face-to-face training, in the real world in Réunion, we had to move it online. And so that was a challenge for us because it's not, there's no real sort of, let's say, solution fitting all to do this. So we tried this hybrid approach, which actually worked pretty well, which was a combination between autonomous e-learning and online face-to-face learning. So first we had the sort of kickoff meeting, and the participants were made to watch online videos that we had prepared. And then they were made to work autonomously on their business plan using what's called the MedPlan tool, which is a business planning matrix that was made by BLueSeeds for MedFUND. So they use this to work on the financial data. And then 1 week later, we met online face-to-face with the participants to discuss their results, and then had them watch some more videos and met with them again to develop the financial strategy. Next slide, please. So these videos are available online. So the two-step approach to this training, first step was to have them watch the 2 first videos, giving context and providing a detailed, let's say, guide to building a business plan. Next slide. Thank you. And after meeting with them, we had them watch these 3 other videos. Video 3 was on how to reduce costs and optimize revenues. Video 4 on how to choose appropriate financing mechanisms. And video 5, examples of self-financing mechanisms. Next video, please. Okay, so who were the targets of last year's training? They were, well, the MPA managers and financial officers at Mediterranean MPAs, those that are the most concerned by using a business plans. And so in all, we trained staff from 8 Mediterranean MPAs. That is approximately 16 people. There's a map here showing their distribution in the Med. Ashtum El Hamid Protectorate in Egypt, Rugova Bay in Turkey, Tyre Coast Nature Reserve in Lebanon, Portofino, MPA in Italy, Landscape Park, Debeli, Rtish, someone will have to tell me if I pronounce that well, in Slovenia, and Sturian Landscape Park in Slovenia, Hima Anfe in Lebanon, and Significant Landscape Canal Luka in Croatia. Apparently someone is mentioning the slides are not appearing on the screen, so I'm not sure if the remote participants here actually see what I'm talking about. Next slide, please.
See your slide.
Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, thanks. So what are the key lessons learned from this training? Okay, so the first one was that initially this was meant to be a physical, in the real world training, and it turned out that we had very good positive feedback from participants, and so this was not just to please us. You can tell when people are trying to please you. Most participants, even those with considerable experience in the business planning, said this gave them perspective, and so that for us was a very good message. And also, it turns out that compared to the physical trainings on business planning we did previously, this is a lot more flexible, and the approach here allows qualitative individual work, allowing each person a hands-on approach, okay? And so because of the diversity of situations, it turned out that people asked for, let's say, individualized business plans. So this, individualization of approach is basically impossible in physical face-to-face training, where the global approach is the key. So that was also very important. The training stressed, as was already known, the importance of management plans for building business plans. If you don't have a management plan or even an overall idea of where you're going, you just can't build a business plan. And so this brings us to the notion that I think one of the important take-home messages from the participants was most participants, well, not most, but a lot of them were planning 2 to 3 years ahead maximum. And that is, it doesn't fit with what their job is about. Their job is about sustainable, let's say, planning of conservation activities over 5, 10, maybe even 20 years. And I think that touches to something which is really important, is that the business planning provided to a lot of managers the idea that even if your management plan, if you have one, is about to expire, even if you don't have money beyond 2 to 3 years, you have to think about what's going to happen in 10 years' time, simply because your mandate, your MPA, and your activities are still going to be are still going to be going all the way to that deadline. Okay, I'm gonna go quickly. Okay, thanks. That's actually where I wanted to get. So one of the key relevant recommendations from our side, from where we stand at BLueSeeds, is to keep delivering online trainings. To our knowledge, there was only this one last year, and we have material now that is, we have a protocol with, the videos, the MedPlan tool, the general approach, and it would be fairly easy to replicate this. Actually, the whole training program is online, and people could actually do it by themselves autonomously. But although that was one of the goals for putting everything online, I think it's pretty clear that people won't do this by themselves. They need some incentive. They need someone to take them by the hand. So even though everything is online, open access, and people should be able to do it autonomously, they need some incentive. So we still need to continue training programs. We need to encourage a linkage with management planning. So if you're doing management plan at a regional level, for example, which makes sense, then you need to do business planning simultaneously. These need to go hand in hand together. And talking of which, another good positive message from this training is that most of the approach, the videos, were used to train most MPAs from the HOMPO, the West African Network of Marine Protected Areas, last year, and so that made sense, and it was really good to see that business planning at a regional scale is going to be probably more effective, in my view, than let's say picking a few people here and there across some large region. If it's done in accordance with a network or a big plan to update management plans, it will be a lot more effective, I think. I think I'm pretty much done. The take-home message is online trainings are really effective, probably more than for other trainings where you need to be face-to-face in the real world. However, you will need to go out there and ask people to join these trainings somehow. So it will need some organization there. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll see you later for some questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Timothée. So before moving to question sessions, just some insight maybe from other networks with Marie Romani, Executive Secretary of the MedFUND network. And then we take some time for the question from the floor.
Thank you, Romain. Maybe just a little insight from the presentation of Timothée, just to inform you that in the framework of the MedFUND regular training program, and also in collaboration with the MedFUND especially, we will soon organize a training on fundraising strategies for MPAs. And I noticed that Timothée make this point very important. So just a note on that, you will be informed soon. So here I will go to a global scale, and all of you know that we have those big challenges that are global in the Mediterranean, at local level and global level, about marine protection. It was really well said by many interventions. And so we are talking about the question of effective management of MPA. We are talking about big targets for the next 8 years, as you say, Aniol. And we are talking about the importance of finding solutions for sustainable funding. So I will talk you about this Global Alliance for Marine Protection. So first, maybe not all of you are familiar with what are conservation trust funds. So as Romain said before, the MedFUND is a new tool, quite not new now, but let's say in the Mediterranean, we have the luck now to have this conservation trust fund. Conservation trust fund dedicated to support MPA exists in in many different places in the world. And for example, you have the Costa Rica Por Siempre Trust Fund that is at national level. So you have the MedFund at regional level, Mediterranean level. You have the MAR fund that is related to the Mesoamerican Reef region. You have the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, etc. In West Africa also, you have several national or regional funds. So those tools are key to support MP operation and recurrent costs with a long-term perspective. You have also some network of conservation trust funds, like Red Lac in Latin America, CAFE in West Africa, Pacifico also, and those network, like network of MPA managers that maybe you are more familiar with, help to build learning community to share best practice between the different trust funds. So, on another hand, you have the network of MPA managers. You have MedPan that I think you know at Mediterranean level. You have a CAMPAM in the Caribbean. You have Roundtable that just Timothée mentioned in West Africa, NAMPAN in North America. And what are the objectives of those networks of MPA managers? Maybe I forgot to say that there are a lot of networks also at national level in the Mediterranean, but also elsewhere in the world. There are new networks, for example, in Western Indian Ocean. Now we are connected with them. And those networks are key to support effective management of MPA by building community of practitioners and MPA managers also, but other key actors around MPA. But also those networks are key to make this link between what is going on at local level in the decision-making process. And recently, or for some years now, different networks of MPA managers, including MedPan, we are collaborating together at global level. First at transatlantic level, and now more recently at a larger level, thanks to a EU ocean governance project that enables us to make kind of joint mobilization of those different networks. And so, there is a natural partnership between, for example, MedFund and MedPan. We will start soon a JEF project, and this is really, I think, interesting for the Mediterranean. And this collaboration, this model can inspire also other regions in the world. And maybe this was the idea of this big alliance to say, okay, at the end, we have the same objective. We would like to support MPA that are effective and sustainably funded. So with different trust funds, with networks of trust funds and networks of MPA managers at different levels, let's say, we want to join forces to do two things: to create a global community of practice to exchange, especially on the question of financing of MPAs, and then also to bring the voice of MPA managers. And you know that MedPan, we are doing this. Many of you are a member or partner of MedPan, you know that. But we cannot be the only voice. For example, at global level, MedPan alone, it's difficult to have some weight. If we go already with other networks of MPA managers elsewhere, and now we will go with Conservation Trust Fund, of course, with the MedFund, and with other networks and other trust funds. So just to say, I would like to be brief, but just to say that we launched this alliance. It's just a start, and I'm convinced that we in the next 10 years we will go really far together. And yeah, this is a nice picture during the IUCN Congress. We organized a special event, and we launched this alliance with all those networks, trust fund, and this is just the beginning, and let's see the future.
Thank you very much, Marie, for the presentation. Does it work? Yeah. Okay. So now it's time for some discussions regarding the presentation we had this morning on funding and investing in marine protected areas. Question from the floor here in Palma, or maybe questions also online. So we want to start. Yes, Christophe. Maybe present yourself and then introduce yourself.
Well, hello. I'm Christophe Baker from the Fundación Capital Mediterráneo. We are the last arrival on this wonderful boat. And I want to thank, first of all, the organizers because they invited us and to participate. And it's a great learning process and especially a great social event. It's nice to meet all these nice people. I would like to come directly to the theme of the financing with a question. Is it possible to imagine some kind of economic compensation mechanism for what I would call the creators of life? Anybody that's engaged in MPAs and around in the surrounding areas who are actually contributing to the increase of biomass and biodiversity, but are not recognized. I mean, I'm just taking an example of a farmer, organic farmer, who's having great difficulties to place his products because of the market values. These people are actually contributing to increasing life, right? They're contributing, they're going against the ecocide that is happening. Is it possible to imagine some mechanisms, which of course would be, I would imagine, national, governmental support that would measure their impact on the increase of biomass and biodiversity, and that would be the measure with which they would be compensated?
Okay. Do you have any experience from that, Aniol?
I mean, I don't think you can find the type of example that you are saying. I mean, when we try to regenerate and improve the state of conservation of the marine environment, you need to implement a program of measures. And that program of measures generally is directed and designed and led by public initiative. And in some cases, there is private initiative. However, I'm more interested on the other side of the coin of what you're saying, which is all those actors that do benefit from the marine environment and that are not contributing to it. Because for me, that's the biggest asymmetry that we have. So we have the marine environment and marine protected areas throwing loads of benefits to our society, to the tourism sector, to the yachting sector, to the fisheries sector. And the tourism sector, and I focus on that in particular, contributing nothing or peanuts to the conservation that they and their future depends on. And I think this massive asymmetry needs to be corrected. And by visualizing that huge asymmetry between what they get and what they put back, then we can start building some of those compensation mechanisms or just an invitation, an invitation to be a bit more, like, okay, I see it, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just to build on that. I think that, Aniol, you say that 2/3 of the value actually of the MPA benefits from tourism activity benefit from 2/3 of the value. And my question was, how much do they contribute to the preservation of your MPA? Is there a fee somewhere? Is there a tourism tax?
There is hardly anything. I mean, obviously, in the Balearics, there is what they call the sustainable tourism tax. And part of that tax is directed to some nature conservation programs. But there is not hypothecation between the tax and the region. So yes, they are contributing something, but the asymmetry is massive. It's compare a cascade like the Niagara Falls and a water pistol. That's to me the scale of the difference.
Okay, we have the image. Lorenzo.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I can add that, for example, our MPA is very small with all the activity that you can imagine in very small area. And so there are a lot of conflicts between categories and the MPA, and different impacts on the environment, where an activity finish its impacts, start the impacts, a complementary impacts. And it's very difficult because we do a lot of effort to make understand to our stakeholder that they depend by the ecosystem. But with one of it's a leisure boat owner that rent also his boat, and it is one of the most collaborative one that we talk about with him about the problems, about a lot of stuff. Last year asked to me, but Lorenzo, is more important, in your opinion, in this area, the income from boating, and so anchoring, for example, on Posidonia or Posidonia? At the time, I understand that maybe we have to do a lot of work on communication, on natural capital value, on make them understand that all of them are dependent by the habitat. So I think that what you propose, it's like a dream. Now we are in a situation worse in Portofino, but for example, in all the Italian MPA. So we maybe this is the future, but now we have to do a lot of work to preserve and to make understand to don't do impacts. Then maybe to pay for increase and to recognize our work. I don't know if.
Thank you. Yeah, and just maybe to add before passing the mic to you, also that there is some mechanism called impact investing, where some organizations are supporting financial activities or financial companies that do good for the business, but also do good for the environment. So some banks, some organizations now are being more and more specialized in this kind of process. It's called impact investing. So this is maybe something that you could look at.
Thank you. The topic of compensation, Daniela Minetti, Regione Liguria. The topic of compensation is dangerous because we can think that we can pay for damage. And all technical community is studied to understand how we can value the damage, the environmental damage, and how much they cost. But it's interesting, the suggestion, because we can propose it in opposite method. But we have to understand how we can pay the ecosystem services and how ecosystem services go inside the chain value, and how we can pay the value of these ecosystem services in all the steps of the product or the fish, for example, or all the service that we can use. In this way, we can compensation this thing. And there is another topic, is how we can recognize the value of ecosystem services for who implement the value of biodiversity, for who have a positive action for environment. So I think that the approach for ecosystem services enlarge our capacity of action. We can start from natural capital, but in ecosystem services we can understand one for one, just for furniture, but not just for furniture, also for services for culture or for tourism and so on. What is this value? And understand how this value go inside the value chain and who have to pay for this. Obviously, we need also a public consideration of all of this value, and implement with policy, but also with money, the activities that can go to implement biodiversity quality. In this way, I think it is possible, but we have to think in different category. We have to think a socio-economical system that don't have our own way. We have to think the future, because we are a little bit more on more grow that what we think. There are mechanisms, there are things that are moving, there are European strategies, there are Bauhaus, there are things that are changing now. And so we can think inside this, the economic method.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. One other question you raised, right?
So it's, I don't know if it's a question or it's a reflection, and is a little bit taking her words. And at the beginning, Aniol said that not everything can be counted as money. And for example, we don't need that, but because our society, capitalistic society, works this way, that's why we are doing this studies and quantifications. And I don't question that. I mean, this is very good work, but maybe at the same time, we have to work or invest, and I don't know if it's we or someone, in changing society values, so as, because otherwise it's business as usual. And, you know, we are changing the way, but not really the way we do things. I don't know. So it's something that I think maybe is inside every one of us. And even it's a bigger challenge. I just wanted to point it out.
Yeah, thank you. This is a long term, right? Okay, because in the meantime, the biodiversity in the Med Sea is collapsing. So we need also short term, I think it both goes together. Maybe I have one question myself also, maybe following your point, is that how successful you were, Aniol and Lorenzo, in convincing decision makers based on your natural capital study. Did you have time already to share that, and how it was like received by your decision makers or local government, for example?
Well, I think that having the opportunity to get the message across that investing in marine protected areas pays off, given all the media impact that this had, is very beneficial, but it's very difficult to track what impact this has. At a more local level, we have managed to persuade the monitoring commissions for the fisheries reserves to start measuring many more indicators than what they would otherwise would. Because in the past, they would only be measuring commercial fish species biomass and diversity. Why? Because they were created for fisheries performance. Hence, I only measure this. This is my responsibility. But we said, hey guys, open your minds and try to measure all these other impacts, because then you are able to put forward a much more persuasive and compelling case for marine conservation. So I'm also working very closely with Tonifon, because Tonifon has been doing all this archaeological work of following each one of the monitoring commissions and ensuring that they meet and that they have an agenda. Now they have all agreed to incorporate new indicators. However, we will need more funding to do that, but they see the benefit. And then the other example is that last week we were invited to go to the World Oceans Day in Madrid, invited by the Ministry of Environment. There was the Minister of Environment, Vice President of Spain, who is a strong advocate for marine conservation, Teresa Rivera, and we had 7 minutes of glory, 7 minutes of glory to emphasize the need for conservation, for marine, more funding for marine conservation, that MPAs, investing in MPAs makes economic sense. Now, it is probably coincidence, but 4 days after that, yesterday, they issued a press release saying that there will be 30 million euros going to coastal regional communities to protect marine biodiversity. It's probably coincidence, and 30 million is peanuts compared to what is needed, but welcome it is, you know. We will never know if that had an impact or not, but I guess that little by little it permeates.
Okay. In our case, we use this study for now mainly with the stakeholder categories, because to reach the policymaker and the local administrator, we have to convince somehow the stakeholder, the users, because if the with a bottom-up approach, because if we start for administration and we know, they know that their electors, let's say this, their citizen doesn't approve this some kind of measure based on, for example, on natural capital, we are sure that they didn't agree. So starting from the bottom, and then when we are almost sure that the stakeholder association, the stakeholder in general agree more or less with us, we can go to the administrator. But now we are in the step with to convince all the stakeholders.
Thank you. Well understand. You had, yeah,
Yes.
raise your hand and.
Yep. I cannot be more in agreement with the Catalan colleague concerning what we have to include in the accounting. I mean, there are many intangibles which are not accounted in this way of presentation of the values of marine protected areas and protected areas in general. And I would like to draw your attention, particularly in the health problem. Let's say we have seen during the pandemic that many health problems have rising up in Europe and around the world. And this issue has been addressed already concerning protected areas on land. There are many, at least some medical systems, national medical systems, which are incorporating the nature-based solution in the resolution of health problems, not only mental health problems, but also in general terms. For example, in Scotland, they are doing a very remarkable job on that, and also in Catalonia in some primary assistance systems. So we should begin to think also in the values of the marine protected areas in this kind of terms. We are offering to the society not only biodiversity protection, not only CO2 uptake of our Posidonia beds, but also many intangibles value which should be accounted. And I would like to make a comment, a nice comment, Aniol, don't take me bad, on the cascade of the Niagara Falls cascade metaphor. I am not sure if the people are feeling that the values of the marine protected areas, particularly local stakeholders, is the Niagara Falls, which is falling over there. Maybe we should, let's say, use a low metaphor, something which is not Niagara Falls, but maybe a creek in the Sierra Norte de Mallorca or something like this. Or maybe we have to change our communication tools to address them directly to local stakeholders and to make them see. I mean, it's very good to have, let's say, a WhatsApp or a comment of Leonardo DiCaprio on the web, but I think we should think more about how to address the message to local stakeholders and to the communities which are in the surroundings of the MPAs, because I'm not quite sure that they are envisaging the values and the positive aspects of MPAs in such a way, in such a ratio of 10:1. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for a comment. One question. Yep.
Well, thank you very much. This is Gonzalez from the Mediterranean Biodiversity Protection Community, a project that has been working closely with MPA Engage and MPA networks. I have 3 comments to make. I hope they will enrich the discussions. The first one was consideration towards the marine protected areas and their role in as carbon sinks for carbon sequestration as well. If this is considered in this natural capital accounting exercise that is done, that could help also link the business plan somehow for carbon offsets in this sense. The second issue would be the word restoration hasn't been mentioned, or I haven't heard anything about restoration these days. And I think it could be also a good measure to consider to fight climate change. There's a new European restoration law that is going to be launched at the end of June. So I invite everybody to look at it and consider as a potential assistance, let's say, to these efforts to make marine protected areas more effective. And finally, on capacity building needs and the lack of time and resources among marine protected areas managers, I refer to the twinning program mentioned by my colleague in Lebanon. And this idea of twinning marine protected areas also in the sense that they could exchange expertise and support each other in areas where some of them are lacking experience. So that could be a more efficient time, like in a secondment schemes or something like that, to share expertise among the network members. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. So regarding the carbon sequestration, maybe you can.
Yeah, we took into account the carbon absorption of Posidonia, and that was measured as one of the services, and that was valued. Personally, I believe that given that Posidonia is gonna increase its mortality as temperature goes up, I don't think you can commit to any long-term carbon offset product linked to Posidonia. So personally, I believe that any carbon products linked to Posidonia are low quality products. And I am very, very wary of any, I mean, I would love that the 600 square kilometers of Posidonia that the Balearics has could translate into a financial rent, into a rent capture for marine conservation in the Balearics. I would love that. But we've been analyzing the situation, and for carbon products to be good products, they need to be additional and they need to be long-term. The additionality criteria is not met because Posidonia is already protected here. So the obligation is to protect it. So there is no additionality to that. And the long-term, that project of conservation is going to be there in 10, 20, 30 years' time, in a warming sea context, is no longer met. So I'm very concerned that the conservation community, not only here but around the world, has a huge demand for funding, and that is going to lower the standard of some products, whether they are biodiversity offsets or carbon offsets or something, because there is a big thirst from companies to link themselves with that. So it's fantastic that there is a private interest in funding regeneration and restoration, but it needs to be done very, very, very carefully. And we need to know where the red lines are.
Thank you, Aniol. Maybe we had one last question at the back, Amoktar. David, okay, you want to comment on that, and then Amoktar.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like, first of all, to thank you, Marilles Foundation, for let us participate in this natural capital accounting project, and also the organization to allow us to participate here. It's much more a reflection than a question. When we speak about natural capital accounting, it's not only about volume. It's about how to capture data in different ways. It's not only about how to monetize all this information, but we've been speaking this morning about vulnerability and different issues. If we capture this data in a harmonized way, we could use this data for different purposes, not only for monetary valuation, but also for communication, for regulation, or even for offsetting or compensation purposes. The other thing is that highlight natural capital accounting methods. It's not only data, it's about ecosystem services, and it's about all the value that the ecosystem services provides. So it's important to have this harmonized way of collecting data, not only at a habitat, species, and economic terms, but also the ecosystem services data and information that our colleague from Liguria told us, because it allows us to link it with the next point that have been mentioned in the last presentation. It's how to finance all this marine protected area, because if you have all this information and which are the ecosystem services, which new business plan can be based on this ecosystem services provision, either provision in regulation or cultural. You can build the business plan that it's needed to finance MPAs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comment. So we are just taking one last question or comment, and then we move to the recommendation because we need, and if it's, I give you the floor with the recommendation at the same time.
Okay, thank you, Roma. And thank you for all presenters for their presentations. Really, I'm thinking another way. You know that the blue economy, it is a huge topic. And also, there are many activities now we are focusing on an MBAs. It is normal because we are working with MedFUND, but I have maybe I'm thinking about other things because with the blue economy, we need to deal with the local communities and with the local fishermen. But we need to take into account there are another activities in another ecosystems which is linked with the marine protected areas, like in coastal area and also wetlands. So in the future, if we started with the NMBAs and we managed well the MBA and the locals who's working in the sea, they get the benefit from this MBA. What will happen with others who's working in wetlands and others, and they are the local also on the same side? So we should think to find some links between projects, maybe with MedFUND or other organization for that. So I think it is really complete each other, link it to each other tightly. So we should think about that. Thank you.
Maybe I pass the mic to Carole Martinez from MedFUND, just sharing with us some recommendation. And if you have some question or recommendation, then we can take them from the floor.
So like the other topic, recommendation have been prepared regarding this issue of sustainable funding or finance of marine conservation. And as you can see in the policy paper that has been circulated last week, we have been elaborating 14 recommendations, and we will present a few of them. We would like to discuss with you if they are the one you would like to promote or not. So these recommendations are actually to make it maybe more clear, because there was some confusion. They have been developed in the frame of the post-2020 roadmap you have all contributed to. The exercise of a policy paper is to further articulate and to make more operational the overarching recommendation of the roadmap. And thanks to the roadmap, thanks to the work done within the working groups of MedFUND, but as well all the former recommendations from the MedFUND annual workshop, we have elaborated this set of recommendations. So a total of 14 recommendations to address the gap in terms of funding. It has been assessed that the needs in terms of supporting effective management of marine protected areas in the region is around 800 million per year. And team indicate with the inflation rate funding need of 2.5 billion. It's a quite huge inflation rate, but nevertheless, there are needs to address. But if it looks impressive at the first sight, actually, when you compare these figures with the economic output of the tourism, for instance, it represents only 0.2% of this economic output of the tourism sector, or even only 0.17% of the asset delivered by the marine resources. So you can see there is definitely a positive ratio. But to date, there is less than 15% of the needs in terms of funding of MPAs covered. So we need to find solution, and this is why we will present few key recommendations for your own consideration and comments. So these recommendations are supporting the key message we will convey tomorrow regarding the need to catalyze sustainable financing opportunity for this Mediterranean Sea. And the first set of recommendation is definitely echoing the pilot action, the results, meaning that we need to promote support economic analysis to show actually that providing financial support to marine protected areas, it's investing in natural capital, investing in sustaining all the diversity of ecological services we are benefiting from marine ecosystems that are preserved through marine protected areas. And this definitely to consolidate the economic value of marine conservation efforts. And here again, to highlight the additionality of marine protection efforts, in addition to the existing economic value. So again, thanks to this project, MPA Networks, we have been able to support natural accounting, but we need to actually expand these efforts to have a more accurate understanding of what does it mean at the national level and then regional level. The second recommendation is actually very linked, since it's about having a more accurate picture of the funding needs. We hear figures, for instance, we have these big figures at the regional level, but what does it mean as the site of the marine protected areas? What does it mean at the national level or even the sub-regional level? We can think, for instance, of the Adric region. We need to support assessment of the needs in terms of funding, and this to support the development of business plans. You can only argue and call for further fundings when you really know what you need. Then we come to the three last recommendations, and they are more linked about finance engineering. And we heard already the word of fees. So what came from the different discussion through the former workshop, but as well the working group on finance of MedFund, is that we need actually to work as well at the political level to have enabling a national framework supporting the development and the use of fees that would directly finance the marine protected areas. There are already financial systems, I would say fiscal systems and tools. The taxes, most of the time, are not directly supporting the marine protected areas. So the idea is to further investigate how the development of fees could directly support the funding of marine protected areas or even network of marine protected areas, and how they could address not only, for instance, the purchase of material or equipment, but as well the human resources, the staff. For instance, we discussed with Portofino National Park, and they told us, we have tools, we have fiscal tools, but to date, these tools don't allow us to use the money collected to recruit people, and we need people at sea. So this is something to further discuss at the political level, how we could develop the set of financial and fiscal tools and how they can really address the needs on the ground. The other recommendation is about trust fund, conservation trust fund that Marie mentioned with the Alliance. And during the discussion, there was a question raised about maybe exploring if there is a need to create, in addition to the MedFund, National Conservation Trust Fund. But we all know that it's a long process. It's quite a costly process. It engages a lot of traders and transaction costs. So as part of the discussion, there was maybe as well the idea to maybe not create a national trust fund, but as well to see how the MedFund, the trust fund we have at the regional level, could further evolve and could, for instance, have earmarked a national counter to further invest in the different countries, and I would say, why not all the countries of the region. Keeping on discussing about how the MedFund could evolve and even grow, part of the recommendation was about to help the MedFund to diversify a source of funding and to see how MedFund could actually capture international finance using different sources of revenues, for instance, shipping fees, port fees, aquarium fees, tourism fees, etc. So this is in a nutshell the key recommendation we have selected for your kind review, your comments. As you know, there are 14 total recommendations. So please let us know if you agree with this kind of selection, what is missing, and how you could further fine-tune them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carole. So I don't know if you want already to react to those some extract of the policy paper and recommendations. I know that Tony, you left. Oh, no, Tony, you're here. Tony, you had a question previously. Is it linked to the recommendation? No. Okay. Okay. Is it? No. Sorry. So I have to take some minute for the recommendations. Yes, you have a question at the back. You don't have a mic? That's a real pity for you. It's coming.
Hello, we have a comment from Timothée Cook from BLueSeeds who spoke further. He said that 700 million euros per year financing gap to fund 10% coverage of med with MPAs equal 2.1 billion euros gap for 30% coverage plus 400 million euros inflations equal approximately 2.5 billion euros per year gap to reach the new CBD goals. He says all this is just a simple linear extrapolations. Sounds like a lot, but we are talking about over 1,000 MPAs in the Met, so not so much. Maybe Timothée, you want to add something more, but that's
yeah. No, that's a good point. Thank you very much, Timothée. I think it's very important to have that in mind when we are pushing the idea of having 30% of the Mediterranean Sea covered by MPA by 2030. We have to remind that those are to be effectively, sustainably financed MPAs, not only like a magic number saying 30 by 30. Sometimes we hear that, but it has to be explained that 30 by 30, how much money does it cost to really deliver ecological benefits based on those MPAs. Other comments from the web? Yeah, Carole.
I think it's being said in the second recommendation, but anyway, I will include a comment on the to push and encourage national government to allocate sufficient funds for the effective management of their national systems of MPAs as the core part of the budget allocated for MPA management. I mean, it's good to find external funding opportunities, funds, foundations, etc. But I think that we have a strong need to encourage national governments to increase their national budgets in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you. One more comment, David?
Just one insight regarding the first paragraph. When we say promote, support the need of economic analysis, I would suggest to include a harmonized way to make this economic analysis in a way that it could be compared in the different parts of the MPA ways, in MPA parts of the Mediterranean area.
Okay, thank you. There is also something, I think, Carole, that it should be highlighted, but maybe it's highlighted in all your recommendations, is that there is a big gap, as we all know, between the north shores of the Mediterranean Sea and the south shores of the Mediterranean Sea. So this has to reflect somewhere that the financial needs is as important in the southeast of the Mediterranean that it is at the north part of the Med. You had a comment also?
Thank you. I think it should be just a suggestion to link our request for European country with the plan that every region had to do for priority action framework request from European Commission in order to what we need to spend for for biodiversity also in the sea, and for implement policy. And this is the first suggestion. The second one is how we can spend this money, because when we implement our path for inland and also for the sea, understand well that not all the money that we have, not money not solve all problem, isn't it? And so if we have money, no, money solve the problem, but not just I have money and so I spend to solve. I have money, but I have to involve different subjects to move them to have a positive action, and so isn't it? Not directly. I don't have to build something. It's so easy for an administration. I have to build something. I have money. I build. Okay. No, in this case, I have money, but with this money, I have to move the ecosystem, human ecosystem, to have to implement action. And so I think this is a reason that we have to think well this kind of action. For us, when we implement our path, we have many problems to understand the measure in which we can put this money. And the path, as you know, we address the path to catch money in all the European program. And so we have to understand well how that program can finance the right action that we need.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think that we are done for this session. So thanks again to Aniol, Esteban, to Lorenzo, Merotto, to Timothée Cook, Marilles, Romani, Carole Martinez. Thank you all of you for this session. And I think now it's time for lunch, no? Tony, you want to tell us, are we going back to the place we were yesterday evening?
I don't think so.
Okay, too bad.
I don't think so, because all the buses were fully booked, but our friend was ready to receive us because he fell in love with us and with our projects. Have to say that Martina told me that it was the first time that someone said to her, I don't know if it's something that happens to all, that someone was giving a big thank you to the MPA's community. So I think it was a big moment to me. So I wanted to tell some logistic things before, and then I will do a farewell speak, very short. But we have to go out for a picture, a group picture. You have to go and sign the assistance papers that Emily is having out there, and also Emily is holding the lunch tickets. So if you want to have lunch, you have to go through the feeding and signing point. And then I wanted just to see that, to tell you that we are very glad, and I personally, to have all of you here. And I want to thank so many people that has been working for that. Sorry, but okay. I want to start by my colleague Sara Garcia, who made this incredible exhibition, and until the last minute we were suffering because the poles were not arriving and so on, because the crisis here in Mallorca has resolved in something like a boom of everything. So everything, every smith is fully booked, every constructor, everything. So it has been very difficult in this time. It will be much more easier to do it in April, but the circumstances of the project made us to make it here. So it has been a bit more complicated, but it's equally joyful for us having you here. So I recommend you to have a look to these pictures, because this exhibition will be traveling all this summer along the island, in the most crowded places, in the touristic places, in the street. Thousands of people will see the exhibition, and there is a piece of policy paper cooking that is in the top of the place. So it's about the photographers being included not only in contest of beautiful pictures, but they will be aware that they are pushing and putting on the street something that is a political recipe for better MPAs. And this is rather well explained there, and there are a link and there's an email, and we will try to collect information. So the project finishes now in June, but the exhibition will run, and we'll keep on collecting interest on this subject. I have to say that I was really surprised by Yorgos. That's so funny. I would like an applause for him, because he's a great guy. And Yorgos is Greek. I love Greece. Half of my heart is in Greece. I used to go sailing there. So Tommy, Yorgos, we have to meet this summer there. And then I wanted to say also, thank you, a big thank you to Pepa Mengual. Pepa Mengual opened us the door of a shining car in this conservation train. Circumstances were the circumstances that were, but we just jump on the car of MPA Networks because he gave us the key to go there, and we enjoyed the company of the MPA Networks, and the train was already starting. So MedFUND did the great job of preparing, and we just jump on that. And when the project was finally approved, we were ready to go for that. And I am also very thankful to David that opened to me the story of the natural capital. I have to say that I was before that I was very was more or less skeptical about natural capital, and I will like to discuss with you by email my impressions. I will not go there, but I think that natural capital provides us a kind of a dashboard of a nuclear plant. We have designed, we see where every element is, every pump, every pipe, and probably it's not perfect. And then when we start the machine, we will see that we need, or we have to change some things, but the idea is about improving. And also the best thing to me is that we can see where we can make investments that make a real benefit. And probably we have an area now that we know that it gives us 5 million benefits. We know that we spend 500,000 euros there. And it will be wise to know if we double the investment, probably we can have a marginal impact of 3 or 4 times the benefits of this investment. Of course, we will not double the full benefit by investing 500,000 more, but probably we'll have 2 or 3 million if we put the money in the right place. And that's why David, Ecoaxa, and also the company, the local company, CBBA, who helped us collecting the information, and was driven by Mino. That's the same person who was describing the story of the marine reserve we were yesterday. I think this will be doing a great difference. And I have not much more to add. Well, thank you to Tony for the night yesterday. Thank you to Daisy from the restaurant Task that she solved very well a little incidents we had, and it was great. We had a great dinner. Thank you to the people in the Rafael Verdera boat that gave us this pleasant place, and also the Salen yacht. We have this, I will send you drone images and everything if you are not overwhelmed to that. And also to the people in Impress Rapid and the company that is making Tony Mir, Satisfactoria, Palma Aquarium, that was also providing a visit to the scientific committee. Okay, if I'm leaving, I think I said everyone. Thank you to our joint project, MPA Engage. It was a great idea because someone asked me why you have done this meeting. I said because it was impossible not doing it. Yeah.
Just few words to thank you all for your kindness, for your patience, for your valuable input. It has been definitely very exciting. I would like to thank again very warmly Tony and Marilles Foundation for the amazing work done here for preparing this event. Without you, it would have been very difficult. I think we could not have done it. So heartfelt thank you, Tony and Marilles, for what all you did. Thank you so much. Thank you as well to our partners. For sure, it was a bit more challenging to make a joint event, but at the end,
It's not over.
But at the end, it was fun, and I think we can see here the added value. And for instance, if we pick only the comment from Lorenzo, seeing the interest to join the tool in terms of vulnerability assessment, in terms of natural capital, I think we can sense here, we can understand here the need to make this a collaboration, because definitely at the end, all the issues are interlinked. So thank you very much again to you all, but to the team as well, my colleagues who have worked hard as well, particularly to Emily, who is our magician in terms of logistics, who has developed wonders of patience. My colleagues, Suzanne, Pierre, Marie, Magali, Georges, and Hand, who have been very supportive. As you can understand, we have been under high pressure because we wanted to have more time actually to make a proper capitalization, but we were not allowed extra months. So we have been working all together very hard in order to be able to capture all the lessons learned, to give back the microphone and the light to our partners. And here again, I would like to thank amazing partner we had in MPA Networks. You know, I jumped on the train in the middle of the adventure. We have been lucky to actually meet very motivating, passionate people. And you know, this is this kind of oxygen that makes sense when you work hard on a daily basis. So thank you to all the partners for your hard work, for making this project happening, and for all this very rich and useful lesson learned. It's our duty now to pass on the baton, to work as well with you at the political level. Thank you again very much. I give now the mic to Kim. Thank you.
Well, yesterday I started my speech or my words. Thank you. And we are thanking again. And I'm not going to stop thanking all of you for being here, for your participation. I'm not going to repeat all the names because they have been named. And tomorrow we will be, and the next day we will be as well thanking all the people for making this possible, because it's hard, but it's necessary. It's more needed than ever to be together and collaborate. Thank you again as well for being adaptive. Yesterday we adapted really well to the restaurant. I think that we can be adapted to this. So we show that we can do it. So thank you very much for this. I just want to say I was listening all the great presentation, and there are some words that came all in many of those. Those words were harmonization, standardization, sharing. Sharing is something that appears many times, and it's difficult to share. I mean, the word it's easy, the concept is easy, but making it possible, like we are doing now, it's difficult, and I think that we have to pursue on this. We talk about financing, and yesterday I say a number. Do you remember the number that I say? 0.38, and today I have that we get another nice number, 2.5 billion, which is the financing gap of having the. So we have these numbers here that we have to keep in mind, because they have to kind of be our line of action to cover all these gaps that we have. And I just want for tomorrow more logistics before I'm giving you the last words. We are opening the registration at 8:45 at the Institute of Marine Science in Barcelona.
So don't be we will be starting at 9:30. Don't arrive at 9:30 because we need to try to keep the schedule, because then there is a bus taking the rest of us, the survivors, the brave ones, to Rosas. And if we have delays on the bus and all the things, so try to be there at 8:45, 9-ish for this. And have safe travels to Barcelona. And I just want to finish with this idea of collaboration. And this another word that I came many times is about the local and the different levels at which we are acting. No? And in the MP Engage project, we have this lemma about act local and think Mediterranean. No? And I think that this is a good lemma to apply for this. So let's together act local and think Mediterranean. Thank you very much.
A big thank you and a very heartfelt thought for interpreters. They are not visible, but they have been highly supporting and made as well a great work. So a big thank you to our translators who are online and have been able this exchange possible.